I didn't say a word when the HOA president slammed her hand on the table and accused me of stealing community water. She was red in the face, practically shaking, but I stayed still. All I did was pull the folded packet of state records from my folder, lay it flat in front of their lawyer, and slide it across. He scanned the first page, frowned, and then froze like someone had just unplugged him from reality. His lips parted, his eyes widened, and then he whispered something into the president's ear that made the blood drain right out of her face. I just sat there quietly, watching the room sink into silence. They weren't yelling anymore, because the truth was right there in black and white. The well they'd been fighting me over, the one they claimed belonged to the whole subdivision, was deeded to me alone, legally, exclusively, and irrevocably. It's funny because none of this was how I thought my life was going to go. When I bought that piece of property, I wasn't looking for a fight. I was looking for peace. My grandfather used to bring me out there when I was a kid. Back then, the cabin was just a crooked stack of logs with a tin roof, tucked beside a patch of oaks and a slope that rolled down toward the stream. The well was always there, reliable as the sunrise, pumping clean cold water from deep under the limestone. He told me once, "This well will outlast all of us." When he passed, the land sat empty for a while, and when I finally got the means, I bought it out from the family so I could restore it. My plan was simple: fix up the cabin, plant a garden, maybe fish on the weekends. I wasn't trying to join a social club or argue with neighbors over paint colors. I just wanted quiet. For a while, that's exactly what I had. I'd wake up early, make coffee on the old wood stove, and sit out on the porch while the morning fog curled up from the ground. The sound of the well pump clicking on was almost comforting. I'd haul a bucket, water the little patch of tomatoes, and then get to work sanding beams or repairing shingles. At night, I'd hear coyotes down in the ravine and owls overhead. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and that was enough. Then one morning, I found a letter taped to my door. "Notice of violation," it said in big block letters. Apparently, according to the local HOA, an association I never signed up for, never voted into, and never once heard from before, my well was not mine. It was community property. They claimed the water belonged to all residents of the subdivision and that I was in violation for restricting access. The letter threatened daily fines if I didn't install a shared access point for the community. I remember standing there, rereading it over and over, thinking it had to be some kind of prank. My well, community property, it was on my deed. The well was older than the HOA itself. They couldn't be serious, but they were. A few days later, I came home to find two men in neon vests standing by the wellhead, clipboard in hand, taking measurements. When I asked what they were doing, they said the HOA had instructed them to prepare for community hookup. I told them flat out they were trespassing, and they left, but not before one of them muttered something about how the association always wins. That was the moment it really sank in. This wasn't a mistake, it was a power play. And they thought I was going to roll over. I didn't. I started small. I wrote a polite letter back, attaching a copy of my deed and the original survey that clearly marked the well as part of my parcel. I even cited the county records that listed the year the well permit was issued, 20 years before the subdivision was even developed. I sent emails to the HOA board asking for a meeting. Their responses ranged from condescending to downright hostile. One board member replied that individual ownership claims don't apply to shared natural resources. Another wrote that if I continued obstructing access, they'd have no choice but to escalate enforcement. Within weeks, they started tacking fines onto my mailbox, $100 a day, then $250. It was surreal. I wasn't using anyone else's water. I wasn't depriving them of anything. But they had latched onto this idea that if they said something loudly enough, it became true. That's when something in me shifted. I stopped trying to reason with them and started researching. I pulled every record I could find. I spent late nights in the county archive scrolling through microfilm of old plat maps. I went through water rights law, well-permitting statutes, and even obscure case law about private versus communal resource disputes. I called the State Water Authority and asked for certified copies of the original well deed and reclamation order. I didn't just want proof. I wanted ironclad, notarized, unimpeachable documentation. Every letter they sent me, I filed. Every notice they posted, I photographed. When they sent men onto my land again, I recorded it. I wasn't yelling or making a scene. I was building a case. It wasn't easy. Some neighbors stopped talking to me, afraid the HOA would target them too. My partner worried about the stress, asked me more than once if it was worth it. I'd stay up past midnight at the kitchen table with statutes and case files spread out, a single lamp burning while everyone else slept. But the more I dug, the clearer it became. The HOA didn't just have a weak claim, they had no claim at all. The well wasn't community property. It never had been. And the state deed I obtained, signed decades ago, made it absolutely, indisputably mine. By the time the next HOA board meeting rolled around, I was ready. I walked in calm, carrying a slim folder. They tried to start the meeting with the usual bluster, accusing me of withholding essential resources and threatening to file a lien on my property. That's when I laid the documents on the table. The original state deed, the water rights certificate, the county well permit, and the reclamation order signed by the state's Department of Natural Resources that explicitly listed me, and only me, as the sole lawful owner and operator of that well. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Their lawyer did the talking. For me, or rather, he stopped talking altogether. Because he knew. The second he read the first page, he knew they didn't just lose. They'd exposed themselves to liability for every fine, every trespass, and every threat. The silence in that room was worth every hour I spent digging through dusty files. The HOA president, the same one who had written the first threatening letter, looked like she might faint. Nobody shouted after that. Nobody even tried to argue. They just shuffled papers, avoided eye contact, and eventually adjourned without another word. In the weeks that followed, the fines vanished. The threats stopped. Word spread fast, and not in their favor. A couple of board members resigned quietly. One neighbor came by just to shake my hand and mutter that he was glad someone finally stood up to them. The HOA never tried to claim the well again. In fact, they barely spoke to me at all. Now when I walk past, some wave stiffly, some turn away, but none of them set foot on my land. And the well? It's still there, still pumping clean water, still mine, just like it always was. It's strange how quiet victory can be. No fireworks, no shouting, just silence where there used to be noise. And honestly, that's all I ever wanted. Quiet.